Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmidt, and this is episode 15. I've got the Kinetic Bear with me, Jacob Miller, marketing and brand manager at Headway, community organizer at Startup Green Bay. He sits on the board for digital fertilizer. Man, the guy knows his stuff. This episode is action-packed, so stick around, grab a pen and paper, and we'll be right back.
Auto volume monitor, auto gain.
Yeah, it's got built-in compression.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
And we're live, man.
That's awesome.
This is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm with Jacob Miller. We're at Copper State Brewing Co, but we're not tucked away at a table or at a booth. We're sitting up at the bar because that's what we do here on What Not to Do. Jacob, what are you drinking?
I actually have a macchiato I'm drinking because it's the afternoon and I need to pick me up. So
Nice. And you did mention that you might get sleepy if you had a beer.
Yeah, beers make me sleepy during the day if I'm sitting down. Yeah. I don't know.
And I guess I should admit I'm all coffeeed out, which I'm not sure if I should go on record and say that because I usually say I can never be too coffeeed out, but I switch it up. So I'm drinking the, I guess I kind of have coffee. It's the chocolate coffee peanut butter porter, which is fantastic. If you've never been to Copper State, get yourself here and get yourself a little peanut butter porter, baby.
Yeah, it's delicious. Good. I agree. I've had it before. It's good.
It's a good, it should last the whole interview. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So if you're listening, we're having fun. We got Sammy bartending for us, which is great. And we got some good jams in the background. It's going to be fun. So, Jacob, all I have to say, thanks for sitting down with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is actually my second time being interviewed on a podcast. So
yeah. It's not the first time we've crossed paths.
No.
So maybe give our listeners a little bit of context of where we first met.
Yeah. So this is like 2010, I think, or 2010. I think it was summer 2010. So it's been 10 years. But our friend Sam was getting married, and you got asked to sing and play guitar at his ceremony. And it was actually technically my first video project ever. And so my background's in marketing. I did video production and stuff and photography. And it was I had just got my camera that summer. I had just started classes at NWTC that month actually at Sam's wedding. And I was like, I'm gonna do a project. So I did the wedding video for Sam and his wife. So it's kind of a crazy, kind of pivotal moment for me actually, which is kind of funny. So that's
awesome. Yeah, we first came from there, and I'm not the only musician at the bar, right?
Yeah. Oh, me? Oh, yeah. I'm like, of course.
He's looking around. Who else?
Yeah. I'm also a musician,
what do you do, man?
Yeah, so I'm a singer-songwriter, but I used to play in a bunch of crazy metal bands and stuff back in the day. So that was back in 2006 to 2010. Yeah. But now it's all singer-songwriter, instrumental type stuff. So
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff out that people can find your music?
Right now, just on SoundCloud. But one of my goals, it was a goal last year. Of course, the goals get pushed back all the time with all the things I want to do. But to get some songs up on Spotify this year and all the streaming services. So just do one single at a time. Not worry about getting albums done because I think that was my barrier. Yeah. Too big of a project at once when I'm doing a lot of other things. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, if it's cool with you, we'll get the link up to SoundCloud in the show notes so people can come check out.
Sounds great.
Do you play under Jacob Miller?
Kinetic Bear is my internet alias.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of other Jacob Millers in this world, so it's hard to Google that. Yeah.
Well, fun, man. That's awesome. Well, let's pick up from there. So, aside from folks that you and I have shared this with, or if we have overlapping networks, they might have an idea for who Jacob Miller is. But man, let's introduce you to the world. Who are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
What am I doing here? That's a good question. So I'm a marketing and brand manager at Headway, and we do product strategy, design, and development. So we basically build applications for startups and for corporations. So if internally they want to build a tool, we can help them do that and transform how they do things basically. But I guess outside of that, I've been been doing video production, photography. I've done like voiceover work actually too, done radio ads, all that kind of stuff. And then otherwise, I like to play music and do other things on the side for fun. So I've done spoon carving randomly for a bit. That was a little kick I did. That was kind of fun. But yeah, I've always just been the kind of person that loves to kind of like dive into new skills and ideas and just to see where it goes. So
yeah, try new things out, right?
Yeah,
that's really, really cool. And you're not from the Green Bay, Wisconsin area?
Yeah, not too far. I'm only an hour north, so Menominee, Michigan. I grew up. Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yep.
We call that the UP.
Yeah.
I don't know if people, maybe.
I always have to ask people if they know what a Youper is.
Right.
It's fine if they don't, but I have to explain it, and then they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you're still a Packers fan?
I'm actually not a sports fan in general. So I will. If I have to pick a team, I'll pick the Packers.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have to. But yeah, I'm not really a sports guy. That's the one thing with me. I grew up being forced to play sports, and it pushed me in the other way. So.
Well, that's just too bad, Jacob. I just love the gosh darn Packers. That might be what you call a Youper accent. It goes around. Escanaba in the Moonlight.
Yes, yep.
That might give some listeners a context. But
yeah.
Cool, man, this is awesome. Are you married?
I am not. I'm single. Yep.
Single. You heard it here, ladies. Jacob
31 and single. I have a dog. His name's Duke. Yeah.
That's a great name for a dog.
Yeah, he's he's a miniature pincher, so he's only 14 pounds. He's got a big personality, big name.
Yeah.
But it's small.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fun, man. And how long have you been in the Green Bay area?
10 years. So
10 years.
Yeah, basically I started at TC the same summer. Yep, as I met you. Yeah.
So awesome. That's so cool. So you mentioned a little bit about Headway. Can you give us kind of a timeline of I guess a bit of your journey, your story to where you got today?
Yeah.
It seems like you maybe have been a creative mind, open to trying new things, maybe adventurous. I guess kind of just walk us through a little bit about how you got where you are today.
Yeah, it's funny because I obviously have a creative role, but when I was in high school, I never took art class. I never thought I was a creative person at all.
Yeah.
I can't draw, I can't do anything. And then it was right at the end of high school, my dad bought not one of the first, but one of the kind of second gen DSLR cameras.
Okay.
At the time, they were 5 megapixels. They had I don't even know, 16 megabyte memory card, super small. And he got it because he had a film camera before that, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So when I was in bands and stuff, I would take other bands' pictures with it.
Yeah.
I would ask to borrow it, and he's like, "You keep that so close to you." He's like, "If you lose that thing, I'm gonna be so mad."
I'm gonna lose you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would just shoot a bunch of cool photos and just kind of mess around with friends and stuff, and at concerts.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I want to do this, but I'm not sure. Part of me wanted to go to school for music engineering, sound engineering, and thought about Michigan Tech had a program. There was actually some weird school in Ohio where it's you would be there for 3 months and live on this little campus, and it was all focused on music engineering. But I decided not to do it, and I just kind of stuck with gen eds for a while. And it's funny because actually when I was in school, I totally failed all my classes in my first couple semesters of college, and I was on academic probation for 3 months or 3 semesters, and I had to work my way out of it. And it was just I learned really fast that I can't just kind of breeze through things anymore.
Yeah.
I had wow, I actually have to get my crap together and really take myself seriously, because I just always in high school never tried. Things kind of came easy to me, and then all of a sudden there was a switch. I was like, whoa, this is hard. What just happened?
Yeah. Life isn't supposed to be like this.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have freedom, that's when you start to lose, or that's when you start to learn a lot faster. Is because when you're making your own choices versus growing up, your sister brings you to school, your parents drop you off. It's a rhythm that you're in, and you don't have to make that choice. You're just going. But then I decided to just not go to class, and then because of that, I didn't know that there were assignments, and I missed stuff, and it was that's all it was. It was just me choosing not to care, basically. Yeah. And then I decided to start caring when I saw the results of that. So and then I decided to go to TC because I was like, I think photography and video seems interesting. I think I'm gonna give it a shot, and it ended up working out really well. I did I got 4.0 the whole time. I went above and beyond in projects. I started doing personal projects on the side of my school projects, and I tried to mold them together so I could get 2 birds with 1 stone, basically. I would get my other classmates to come with me and do all these projects, and they're this is so cool. It was such a cool collaborative, it was building like a little community on campus. It was cool.
Yeah.
And then I got my first job like a few months before I even graduated at a company called Ultra Resources in Neenah, Wisconsin. And I got that job all through it was my first semester in school. My photography teacher, he like would see me in the grocery store when I worked at Festival of Foods. Yeah. So I had, from all through school, I had worked in grocery stores for like 8 years. So I was in school for a long time because I had to retake all these classes, but I always worked in grocery stores the whole time, and worked my way up. And I was like a floor manager at Festival of Foods. And then the teacher saw me one day. He's like, "Hey," he's like, how are things going? He's like, "You looking for a job?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe." And then he's like, "Yeah." Well, it's like, "Well, what is it?" And then he's like, "Well, I have a friend down in Neenah at Ultra Resources that's looking for a guy to join his team to do video production, photography, and stuff." I was like, "Oh, cool." Met him over coffee, and then basically a month later, I had the job. Yeah. So, and it's funny because ever since then, I've never had to apply for a job in my life. So, which I think is like one of those things where like if you work really hard in your craft and you develop really good relationships with people, which with that teacher I did have a good relationship with, people will just like reach out to you over time and be like, "Hey, we're like thinking about you. Are you interested?" Yeah. And that's what's happened over and over and over. So I worked at Alta, which they work with like Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies like Disney, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, Johnson & Johnson, SC Johnson. So I basically helped them grow their sales, like help with their sales team internally with marketing, and then I also helped with recruitment because they have like at the time they had over 2,000 employees, so their turnover was pretty high, but they always had to get recruitment, so I helped with a lot of that stuff. So I just learned a ton about like corporate environment marketing, and like how like video and photography are like incorporated into that whole circle, which was super cool and super valuable. I did that for 3 years, and then Sam, he was working at Archetype at the time. This was like 2015.
Sam who?
Sam Picard.
Oh, yeah, Sam Picard. If you're listening, hi Sam.
Hi Sam.
Get Sam on the show.
You should, yeah. I told him I was hopping in here, and then Sam invited me to come hang out at Archetype for an afternoon, and because I had put in like a really heavy week, so I had Friday off, and they met me and they're like, basically, "Hey, do you want to work here?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess. Like, let's chat." And then 2 months later, I started. And then I was there for a while, did like, some TV spots for like Shopco and Fox Communities Credit Union, and got to go to Europe for a video project and stuff, which is super cool. Yeah, tough stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It was, yeah, for sure. It was just like really like enriching experience, but I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be still. Like the whole time I was there, I was like, I don't know if this is the right fit for me still, because I knew I really couldn't go up in my position, or like there was no like growth plan, I guess. And I felt like I was kind of like, this is it. I was like, I don't know. And then
not sure if I'm ready to do this for 40 more years.
Yeah. And then I had met up with Andrew Verbencourt from Headway. He's like, "Hey, let's grab coffee," and this was like in 2017. And
did you know him previously? Had you crossed paths? Okay.
Yeah. So Andrew and I have known each other since like 2013 or so. Cool. Okay. So through Digital Fertilizer. So he started Digital Fertilizer. I can't remember if I found the group on Meetup.com or if like someone tweeted it or something. And I was like, "Oh, I'll go." And it was in De Pere, and I lived there, and it was like right down the street. So I was like, "Oh, I'll go to these." Yeah, I'll walk to these events.
We didn't exist.
Yeah, and it was all about startups and the tech scene, and ever since then, I would go to the events. I would just take pictures like of the events and be like, "Hey, Andrew, you can use these in your newsletter or for social or whatever." And I always was just like for free providing value to them, because I wanted to support this community, and I just thought like, man, I wish there was a strong tech community in Green Bay. Like we can do it if we keep like the persistence of it. And now here I am. Yeah, I'm on the board now for Digital Fertilizer, which is super cool. But yeah, anyway, I go back to 2017. Andrew invited me out for coffee. "Hey, how are things going for you?" "Oh, going great, blah, 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 blah." And then he's like, "Hey, we're thinking about adding a marketing guy to our team." At the time, I think they had like 12 employees at the time. And now we have 28. But he was like, "Hey, we're thinking about adding somebody." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, why?" And then he like looks at me. He's like, "Yeah, we're thinking about you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Actually, funny thing, I didn't mention all this stuff, so I'm like super interested, because I just like sometimes when you meet with people, you don't want to share all of the weight of things. You're just like, oh, I'll talk a little bit. But then once he shared the opportunity, it's like, actually, this like totally aligns with what I would like to do next.
Yeah.
And then I took it. So then I started a couple months later. And then here we are. Now it's been 2.5 years at Headway. So
Andrew was a Sprechen your Deutsch.
Yeah. And I think the greatest thing about my current position at Headway is like, one, I know that like the leadership team there, they know and understand like the kind of marketing efforts we want to do. So we now launched a second podcast.
Yeah.
So we have podcasts. We want to do way more video stuff. We host events every month, like free events for the community. These are all things that I always am like, oh, I wish I worked at a company that did all this stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're doing it.
How you doing it? Yeah.
And so that was like, and not only that too, like in order for that to scale, you have to build a team around that. And I know that I would be leading that as we grow. So yeah,
so sweet. Yeah. So Jacob had initially offered to have us record in the Headway studio, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I call this Kyle style, where it's meet in person over a beer, so you get the ambience noise. And I don't even know who this is playing in the background, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But that said, we will include in the show notes links to the podcast for Headway.
Oh,
you guys,
absolutely,
so people can follow with what you guys are doing. And
that'd be awesome.
Too,
yeah.
Awesome. So marketing, creative mind, music, all across the board. You have a history of just continue to provide value, be excellent at what you do, and through relationships, the next opportunities come, right? You've been your walking resume. I sat down with a guy named Roger Patience. He's a bivocational priest in the Episcopal Church. Yesterday for conversation, we talked a little bit about that idea of paying so much attention to your resume and cover letter is kind of, in this day and age, outdated advice. Really, you are your resume, you are your cover letter, and your work will speak for itself, either for good or for ill in that sense. And so it's cool to see the kind of journey. But I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are, so like, why? Why do you wake up every morning, continue to give yourself to this kind of creative endeavor with marketing and video production and podcasting and why Headway? Like, what's the greater aim or purpose or pulse that's beating inside you, man, that keeps you doing this kind of work?
It's funny because like the last year or two has been way more like coordinating events for the community and stuff like that, and more education focused. And it's just like, as I have more conversations with people, I start to realize, and this is, I always kind of knew this, but I never really could like really explain it. But the amount of people that still don't know a lot of, like, aren't aware of the opportunities that are available, or aware of like how they can do things differently. There's all these different things. I think it's so important for us to constantly be like taking action and like letting people know like what they can do. Like, hey, did you ever think about it this way? Or like, did you know you can do this? Like, did you know that this is here in Green Bay? Did you know that you can do this online? Did you know that you can, I think for me, a lot of it is empowering other people, because like I can only do so much by myself. And if I can help like 10 people do something really well, like that, just, it's like this, amplification effect. It is totally just like a ripple effect. And I don't know, it's funny because a lot of people ask me like, oh, how come you're not like in Chicago or LA or San Francisco or New York or whatever? Like, oh, you should move there. You could get an awesome job doing whatever. But I always like think about like Green Bay. Like when I first moved here, I'm like, I want to stay here and I want to like make this place, make people want to be here, like basically. Because there's a lot of people that like leave because they don't think that something is happening here. I'm like, well, if no one's like attempting it, then that's why it's not happening. So, I think a lot of it is like, one is you have to like kind of have like a North Star, like, hey, where do you want to go? What would you like to see like in your community? So for me, I'm like, oh, I want to see like the tech community grow, but I also want to see the creative community grow because I'm kind of involved in both, and I feel like there's synergies there. And by doing that, it's like, okay, I have to consistently like help events happen, consistently talk to people and say, hey, did you know we have these events? You should come join us. It's free, or like, oh, it's only $10 or it's only $20. Like, you should come join us. Then you actually, oh, you should talk to this person. You should talk to that person. So like for me, it's like, how can I get more people connected and get them to show up and be together? And then the other part of that too is like just the consistency. Like with digital fertilizer and with Headway, we've been consistently doing things for years, and it's like, and now it's not that people didn't like notice it before, but now it's like it's starting to like gain momentum, way more momentum than ever. And there's a lot of other variables that make that so, but I think with anything that's always true. Like, hey, as long as you're always on your trajectory and doing your part, all all it takes is for the other variable to align with you, and then that's when it happens.
Yeah.
But if you're not consistently doing it, if you stop just before that all of a sudden that collision of good happens, like all of a sudden then you missed it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you only need to do it for one more week.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like, oh man, I should have stuck on for one more week and I would have got it. Like, kind of thing.
Yeah. Have you read Jim Collins' Good to Great?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, familiar with the flywheel effect. I mean, it's there's a similar principle to like compounding interest.
Yeah.
To where it's like, the parable of a penny were to compound every day for 30 days. After 2 weeks, you only have $115. You're like, what is this? Like, why am I still even doing this?
Yeah.
Right. But by the mid-20s, you start to get hundreds of thousands, that kind of stuff. Late 20s, you start to get into $1 million or $2 million, and day 30 is $5 million, and day 31 is $10 million. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, so like, would you have rather had $1 million up front, or wait 30 days and have $10 million? Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a parable for our work in life. You do the steady things over and over and over, the small incremental things. You're constantly getting 1% better every day, but all these things add up to massive results.
Yep.
If you give it time, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing happens instantaneously, that kind of stuff, but it's really powerful when that does happen. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard because even for me, like I'll be in the middle of like kind of like reaching towards something, and then you're like, when you're not seeing results, it's like so hard. You're like, but then but every time you wait it out and then it happens, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I kept going.
Yeah.
But it's like there is no like easy way around that phase where it's like you feel nothing basically, and you're like, man, why am I doing this? But that's why it's super important to have like other people either with you in that endeavor, or to have like someone mentoring you or coaching you or advising you. Like, just ask. It's more like them asking you the right questions, because you'll get in your own head and be like, and question yourself in the wrong way.
For sure.
Why am I doing this? Like, how come I'm not this good? How come I'm not here yet? Instead of having like, how come I'm not this? Like, oh, I know that if I keep doing this, it'll happen. It'll finally happen. Like, it's like the whole like, just having that right person to talk to you with the right mindset versus like you just thinking that it's never going to work, or like, I don't know. Yeah. So.
Yeah, someone who's been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Who sees, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to climb, and they're willing to help you, but you don't have the vision.
Yeah.
But they can help to hold it for you.
Yeah, and then on the flip side though too, like there's definitely a lot of things that, just because I've tried a lot of different things, is like knowing when to quit too. Like sometimes it's not easy either. To like, it's like
the dip.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's almost like you have to validate it a little bit. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, but if no one else in the community is chiming in, if it's like a community type thing, we know to stop doing it. Like, oh well, no one seems to like be resonating with that, so like let's not do it anymore. Or it's like if you do ads, like, oh, no one's clicking, well, let's stop spending money on it. Like, it's the same kind of thing. So stop spending your time and your own money on this thing that's not working. Yeah. Personal hobbies can be different, obviously, but sometimes you just do it just to do it. Like baking food, and all of a sudden this $20 of ingredients tastes like poop.
And we definitely do not recommend eating what not to do, right?
Yeah.
Don't eat poop.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
Oh, man. I'm not going to edit that out either.
No, that's fine.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Don't eat poop. What not to do.
Yeah.
We're done. Episode's done, right?
Episode's done. Just don't eat it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, man, you're hitting on some gold there. So many things came to mind. Have you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich? Mm-mm. Hey, Sammy, can I do another peanut butter porter? Thank you. Really practical read, but they give a story in the beginning about a guy that during the gold rush went out, dug around, found gold, covered it up, came back out east, raised some funds, and went back out and started digging for gold and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, we're going to be so wealthy. And they found all the gold that they needed to be able to pay off all the equipment, but then the gold vein disappeared. Thank you so much, Sammy. I appreciate it. And they, became all despondent and decided to, sell the equipment to a local scrapper. And the scrapper, had the wisdom to know that, well, let's go hire a mining engineer to figure out where this gold vein went,
Oh, yeah.
And so the mining engineer comes along and just kind of laughs. He's like, well, they don't, that previous, band have Yahoos. They knew nothing about fault lines. You're going to find the rest, the continuation of that gold line 3 feet from where it left off.
Yeah.
3 feet. And so obviously you can imagine the original guys were just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the guys that helped to put up the funds was the guy's nephew. Well, the guy's nephew learned the lesson of they stopped 3 feet short from gold. Had they just brought the outside help when they needed it, when they seemed like there was a dead end, they would have had everything that they thought they would have had. Right?
Yeah.
Yet they sold, for pennies on the dollar, their equipment to a scrapper.
Yeah.
Who became incredibly wealthy. Well, so this nephew that put up the funds, he ends up it takes that lesson to heart, ends up being one of the most successful life insurance salesmen in the world. Whoa. Because he realized that he was never going to stop at no again. Right when he got this proverbial no, hey, there's no more gold. Right, he realized I'm 3 feet from it.
Yeah.
Right? And in that sense, he became one of the most successful salesmen. So I think it's such a principle in life. Like whatever we might be doing, even if we don't have the vision, if we think it's a dead end, if we think that there's a stop, it just means that we got to reach up, right? Reach out for help. Other people that have that vision that we don't, and help us to see. And maybe it is a dead end, and maybe that's when we do need to quit.
Yeah.
I know Seth Godin talks about that in his book, The Dip.
Yeah.
That we have to consider the dip, and if it's not something that we're willing to push through, that if we're not willing to push the dip when it inevitably comes, then it's something that we shouldn't be doing in the first place. We should just quit. There's no virtue in just trying to push through that.
Yeah.
But if it is something to us that's worthwhile pushing through, like finding the rest of this gold, right? Yeah. Then we should aspire to it and do it.
Yeah.
So,
And what's interesting is that one of the things that I've learned at just working at Headway is compared to other places that I've worked at, is that we constantly are investing into ourselves, as individuals, as a team. We have consultants that actually work with our company, our whole team, our individual teams, to help us get better. Because we don't have a big enough ego to be no, we know what we're doing all the time, or hey, we're not good at that. We're going to hire someone to teach us how to be good at that. Yeah. So, or they're going to guide us along the way as we keep going and keep getting better. Yeah. That's the one thing I think I wish, years ago, I wish I would have gotten a coach or a consultant to help me. For me, on a more personal level, I wish I would have a financial coach when I was right out of high school, to be hey, not that my parents didn't teach me to not put money on credit cards and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I wish I just would have had someone to sit down with me and be hey, this is what you need to do, because these are the results you're going to get if you do it. I never really had that opportunity, and now I'm on the right path. Later, because I was I need to figure this out, and I finally did more research, found a really great book. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Yeah. And he breaks it down really well, and it's I wish I would have read this book 10 years ago. Well, it didn't exist 10 years ago, but it's I wish I had someone like this in my life to clearly get rid of all the garbage that's in the air about your finances and stuff and all the jargon. Just tell me straight up what I need to do. Yeah. 10% here, 5% there, whatever. Okay, this is really easy to look at now.
And do you think that book did that for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What, it's Ramit Sethi?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep. Yeah, his social presence is awesome too. Yeah, you should. Yeah.
He's probably listening to this right now. Right?
Yeah.
Let's get him on the show, but we won't include that in your top 3 books, but we'll put it in the show notes, because I think that's going to be really helpful. If you guys are listening to this, it's sometimes talking about money and finances is it's one of the things we don't talk about, right? Mm-hmm. And but yet we don't know what to do with what we have, right? Or we get this taste in our mouth that building wealth is a bad thing. Yep. And that's actually one of the most selfless things that you can do, because you can, when you really take your skills and your talents, you build them to the best of your ability, you're going to inevitably build wealth. Yep. And it's a great blessing to not only yourself, but to your family and to the world around you. Yep. Right? If we just squander everything that we have, we're actually not only robbing the world and our families, but ourselves. Yeah. Right. So, it's, but to have then that practical advice and say, can you just show me the steps? Yep. Right. Because I need to know just the basic nitty gritty. Yeah. It's really helpful, and sometimes that doesn't always come along. So if you think that'd be really helpful, read, man, maybe some of our listeners would say that's exactly what I need right now. Yeah. I have to say, my financial situation, after college till now, up until a few years ago, was not that great. I had some student loans, and I had an auto car loan, but I had credit card debt, and I finally got to the point where I was I need to figure this out, because it gives you so much anxiety, and it's stupid, and I know that if I wouldn't have had all that debt, I would have, and not that it didn't help me, because it paid for my camera gear and my laptop and all this other stuff, and getting my cars fixed, because I was for the longest time I didn't have a good paying job.
but like at the same time, I'm like, oh, I probably could have been way smarter in those situations, or thought of different ways, or been like, oh, you know what? Well, I'm just not going to go out to eat this month, or like just like think of it differently, you know. But if I always think about in retrospect, like if I was in a different financial situation and different times in my life, I could have totally helped. Like there's a lot. I like to help like a lot of nonprofits in the area, like with like any efforts they're doing. I'm like, oh, if I was, you know, like in a financially healthy state, then I would have like gave more, or I would have like done more. Like I could have totally like empowered like other people to do things. Sure. It's like there's so many times where I'm like, I wish I could give and I couldn't, but now I know in the future I'll be able to.
Yeah.
But in those moments I'm like, man, I wish I could have done this or done that, and it's like, or just been able to do more. And you're totally right. Like it's just like it holds us back. It's not like a selfish thing. It's like, oh, I'm able to do more for everyone else in my life, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, we'll have that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
All right, man. So let's shift gears like a Honda into our main segment here. And
I've never owned a manual vehicle before. Fun fact.
I think I pulled that from like an SNL skit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I've got a bunch of. If you were to venture into my brain, there's a bunch of, you know, crusty old dusty files and
gotcha.
a lot of stuff in there that the world doesn't need to. But that was one of them, right?
All right.
Shift gears like a Honda.
Sounds good to me. I don't know.
All right. So looking back over your career, man, you've had some really good successes, and we kind of alluded to them when we were recapping, I guess, just the first segment and your journey and ultimately your why. But maybe in your own words, man, kind of talk about what you did right along the way that has played into you seeing just increasing success and increasing opportunity to this point in your career.
Yeah. Such a big question.
Massive question.
Yeah. I think for me,
it was having a beard.
Yeah. It's so you can do this. You can rub your hand on it and act like you're thinking.
So pushed open all the doors.
Yeah. No, I think for me, the biggest thing is just being, I guess, open-minded, curious, and then consistent. Like I wasn't ever always like the most talented like photographer or video person or whatever, but like I always like consistent. It's like you talked about before, the 1%, and James Clear talks about that. He's been
Atomic Habits.
Yeah, and I've been following his blog. Like he's been a weird like online mentor for me since like 2000. When he started that blog in like 2013 or something. I've been following it since then. I don't even know how I found it on the internet, like Twitter or something. But like everything he would talk about, I'm like, he has such a great way of talking about like how to approach life every day, not just like big picture stuff, but like, hey, what can you do in your daily life to like make yourself better? Yeah. And that whole 1% thing is like so true. It's like, so I think that's what happened is like I just consistently, whether it was in, you know, like my career, like with like photography and video and like just marketing, or it was like with my music, I've just consistently like I would buy online courses and go through them, or I would like create my own projects to like learn something or try something different. And
hold on.
Yeah.
Are online courses a scam?
No. Well, they can be. They can be.
Talk about that just a minute, because I think sometimes, because you mentioned being open-minded, and I think sometimes when you're scrolling on Facebook and you see that ad that comes up, everyone's just like, oh, here's a get-rich-quick thing, here's a big scam. And actually, it's not always the case. There's actually some really value there. So,
absolutely.
Do you mind sharing just a little bit about your experience? Can we refund that for a minute?
Yeah. Let's see. So, I mean, I've done Skillshare.com. I mean, I think you have to doing your research always helps.
Yeah, for sure.
So like my first kind of like dive into like online was like, I mean, you could say YouTube, I guess, just like seeing who out there is sharing free information, like what has their experience been, and usually they're pretty more in depth because it's like they just kind of talk candidly about it while they're doing a tutorial or something. But Skillshare.com was like huge for me for getting better at motion graphics, and then but with video or audio production with music and stuff. Graham Cochran has an awesome, it's called The Recording Revolution, and he had an awesome course, and they're totally affordable, like $100, $120, and like basically how you can create radio ready like tracks, you know, on your laptop. Like how can you do it without like all the crazy gear? You don't need all this crazy gear to create great music. And I learned so much from him, and it was just like it totally changed the way like I write music, I record it, and super beneficial. And that also impacted like my video production skills, like because audio is a huge part of video production. It just completely like changed it all. And yeah, it was just like such a cool thing, and such a, like, I think just like giving things a chance, like, oh, I'm going to learn how to do this. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, going back to the question, the right things. Yeah, so it's consistency.
Yeah, so you mentioned open-minded.
Curiosity and consistency. Yeah, so I think I was like, oh, this course seems like it might be good for me.
Yeah.
And then you should just do it. If you can afford to do it, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to budget this month so I can pay to do that, that's great. And because I know, like, if that works, that means the next, like, 5 to 10 years are going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
So.
And really, maybe another way to think about that is you are investing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, like how a startup works, like when you've got the capital that's there.
Yep.
And the idea, the temptation is, as the profits start rolling in, you want to spend the profits, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the strategy is
bring it back in, reinvest
reinvest in the company, get that flywheel going. Because then instead of taking a smaller salary up front of the profits, that's going to really kind of like stunt the growth process. You're going to get a much bigger reward, a much bigger salary if after the flywheel takes off. I think life is similar, and like human maturity is similar. Like in your life, as you're going through in your career here, not only were you open-minded, curious, and you pursued learning, but you really had a way of investing in yourself and your own skills. That you're going to pay $100, $120 here. But it wasn't like you were just throwing that away on, on beer or or something like that. It was a reinvestment. Profits from your work now. The startup of Jacob Miller reinvested to get that flywheel effect going. That over and over and over and over again made you into who you are today and really brought that into your success.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense, or would you agree with that? Or?
And I think the other thing too is, like, I think there's a lot of times there's like this weird like mindset with like going to like taking a college class versus an online class. And the one thing that remember with online classes, whether you're paying for online classes at a school or from like an entrepreneur that's selling this course online, is that the success rate of like anyone that takes an online course is really low. Like, because you have to take it yourself. It's a self-discipline of like showing up, doing the homework that's given, like maybe in the video or whatever, or within the article that they give you in that lesson. Like, you have to do it. Like, there's no one there holding your hand. Like, you have to do it yourself. And I think that's something too, like, I think that's true even in a physical classroom environment. Like, you show up, it's like up to you to like what you're going to do with that information, if you're going to apply it and like succeed after it. So, and the value I think with the online stuff, specifically by other entrepreneurs, is that it's way more current topics usually. Where like in a more institutional like lesson, they might be more theoretical and not super applicable to like today's like, in 2020, how do you do social media marketing? They're not like, they don't have enough time to make a book about that to throw it into a classroom like at a tech school or like a four-year campus. Like, it's just so fast.
How fast the strategies change, all that kind of stuff. So don't necessarily keep open-minded to stuff that pops up. To investing in yourself. The world's falling apart here at Copper State.
We're okay.
I still have my beer, which is great. But that focus on reinvesting in yourself, be open-minded, and make those strategic investments. See that as a good use of your finances, of your quote-unquote profits, reinvesting in the business of you. Because really, like we said before, you are your resume, you are your business. Even at Headway, you are, the CEO of Jacob Miller, right? .com or whatever you want to be like. You are the CEO, right?
I should have never gone to that website, actually. Jacob Miller. There's a reggae singer from the 80s named Jacob Miller. He gets all the SEO. So.
What a jerk.
But the other thing I was thinking about was, it's funny, for the longest time I've been investing into like my skills as like as an artist, like, so to speak, like with video and photography and audio and stuff. But then now it's been more like in strategy. Like, how do I understand like you were talking about mental models and stuff. How do you approach like problems, and then like creating a plan to approach those problems, and then also like being a better leader. Like, for now I'm like starting to do one-on-ones with people on my team, and I'm like, well, this is like such a next step. Like, it's like obviously my role is marketing and brand manager. Like, I'm managing like what we're doing, but not always necessarily managing people. But now that's starting to change. And now it's like, oh, how do I better communicate with everyone else on my team? How do I lead them? It's like I'm starting to learn to like, I got to change like my daily schedule like what I'm doing in the morning, so I'm better prepared when I get to work. Like there's all these things I'm like starting to reconsider in my life that I just always kind of like winged it, and now I'm like, man, I need structure so that I can be there for when everyone else needs me. So because if I can be prepared for other people, then they can succeed, and it's like this whole thing like being there for other people more than just like reactive and just like off the cuff. So
yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, growing in the strength and maturity, taking initiative, responsibility, realizing that as you're growing those capacities, you're leading people. Yeah, and you don't want to toy with their lives and all that kind of stuff. So you realize it really kind of forces you to ante up type of thing. And, which is cool. Yeah, it's a good thing.
And it's as much as you can read all these books about leadership and communication and relationships, like it's always like a learning experience, like by just doing it, like because like humans are imperfect, you're imperfect, like everyone's gonna make mistakes along the way, or people are gonna feel differently about something you said, and it's like it's just things happen, and you just kind of have to grow and go with the flow, but like always just own it. Like I think one of the books you were so Herding Tigers is one of the books I was gonna recommend later, but I'll bring it up now because it makes sense. But that's all about like being a creative like leader. So like if you're leading like other creative people like designers and like photographers or whatever like on your team or copywriters, like how do you like lead them? It's like he's like the whole book's like he talks about leading a creative team's like herding. It's not like herding cats, it's like herding tigers, because they're all really like strong and like creative people. So like how do you like empower them and then like also let go of control, because you can't like just like micromanage them. It doesn't work that way, because when people feel micromanaged, they leave. Like they're like, I don't want to be like this. But how do you then also like when they make mistakes, you have to own their mistakes, because you didn't set them up for success. Yeah. So like there's a lot of great insight in that book, and
it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
Between the two, for sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, you said exactly right.
Herding Tigers, that's a cool concept. I never heard of the book.
Yeah. Todd Henry's the author. He had a couple other books, but it's such a great, because it's like creative leadership's so hard, because it's like, you have these projects, and you know what the clients want, but your team, it's like how do you make sure your team's always in the know of like what your clients think about, and also just falling on the sword for everybody else, because that's how you gain trust, and people are more willing to like take risks if they know that you trust them, and like when you take those risks, like really great things can happen. Like wow, but when they don't happen, you still have to own it. It's like it's cool stuff. It was a great book.
Yeah, cool. Well, good. So we'll have that in the show notes. For all y'all that are interested, but you're gonna have to wait for the other two.
Nice.
Till the end here.
All right, I want to know who's next. Who do you want to hear on What Not to Do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
Cool, man. That's some just really good stuff. And I hope for the folks that are listening that you're taking notes. Hopefully not if you're driving, but taking notes. And I hope that you guys are inspired to really invest in yourself, to keep that open mind, and to see like, hey, one of the best things that I can do, one of the best things I can do with my own resources, which includes time and money, and is to invest in the 3 feet that's around me, because it's really going to help with everything else. That's really cool. That's good. All right, but not everything was a success.
No.
You're a human, not a bear, as your online avatar would suggest, or whatever.
Yeah.
So as you're looking back, man, to date, we're not looking for trade secrets or for you to air any kind of dirty laundry. We would actually prefer that you don't air any dirty laundry. But we are in public after all. What are a few failures, one or two, that you kind of just surfaced to mind? The ones that you don't have to really dig for.
Yeah.
As you're kind of looking back, and it's just like, man, they're not necessarily, not that you necessarily regret or have their ghosts that haunt you, but kind of like they're just there when you look back, and you're like, yeah, if I could have that one back, man, I totally would. Yeah. For Jacob's life, like, what's one or two of those failures that that you'd be willing to lean into and share with us?
Yeah, it's funny. The first one, it's kind of like, it's definitely more like on their personal side than it is professional side, but
for sure. Yeah.
But both are part of it. But I have to say, like, there were times in my career where I was so focused on like constantly learning new skills, doing personal projects, and like wanting to get better at my job, that I would sacrifice my time with my relationships. So like if I was dating somebody, like I would be so like hyper focused on things I wanted to achieve that I wouldn't like always recognize their needs. Like that was like a huge learning for me. Like it's not like the only reason I'm single right now, but it's just like I would get so obsessed with a lot of things that I would forget like that they were also important. And I learned that through the thing, and then those people communicated that to me like as the relationships ended. They're like, because I was like, like we'd have those heavy conversations about why it's ending, and that was one of the things that was like, kind of not necessarily a recurring theme, but I started to connect the dots over time, because they wouldn't always necessarily say it, but I was like, you know what, when I think about it, I should have like separated or made time for them, like instead of just like assuming that they're going to always support what I want to do, and also making time to support everyone else in your life, like making sure if they're going to support you, you should have not return the favor, but that should be a normal like thing you do. Like you shouldn't have to like say, oh, she helped me this many hours this week and supported me, I should do this many hours for her. It's not about like checks and balances. It's just about doing the right thing. Right. So that for me was like one. Not that I can change like the past with any of those, but it just gave me some clarity on like, hey, I need to like not get so obsessed with like nothing wrong with being obsessed with like something, but just having like kind of checking in with yourself and making sure that you're not like leaving others behind. So
yeah, I mean, all that you're doing, all the work that you're doing, you're not only doing for yourself, but you're ultimately doing for other people, right? Yeah. Whatever product or value you're taking to market, it's really for the sake of others. Yeah. If it's a means to be able to provide for your loved ones, then you're doing it for others. And so there's a way in which our work, we can go about doing our work intensely, obsessively, which can be a good thing, but not if it's ultimately sacrificing everyone else in our lives. Because then we have to say, okay, maybe we need to redefine obsession here, or focus on that kind of stuff. And I love what you said about checks and balances. I mean, sometimes we get into that mindset of like, well, she gave me this, I'm going to give her that. Yeah. And it's like, well, that's not really how human nature works. Like, it's no fun trying to keep score, tit for tat type of thing. But like what you said, just doing what's right, and sometimes that's more something you have to intuitively, right?
It's in your gut.
Yeah. Then it is saying like, you know what, I actually need to sit down, I need to close the laptop right now and just go read a book with my wife or something like that. Or,
take her out to dinner, buy her flowers for no reason, all that kind of stuff.
Put the phone down and get on the floor and play with the kids.
That too. Yeah.
Making sure that you are not just managing time, but making time, because it kind of goes back to what you're saying between fault and responsibility. Like you got to take full ownership, and we're ultimately responsible.
Yeah, it's like where you spend your time clearly, like your actions clearly state what's important to you. I can't remember who said that. Somebody said that recently.
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone. I can't remember if it was a James Clear thing or if someone tweeted it. I was like, dang, it's like really heavy right now, because I started thinking about my whole week. I was like, what did I do this week? What's
Thanks
important?
For ruining my week.
Yeah. I was like, shoot. But it's such an easy way. Sometimes like, as complex as life can be, it's also super simple. Yeah. Which is super, Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Well, and sometimes it's those simple truths that kick us in the teeth. You know what I'm saying? Like we gloss over them because they're so simple, and yet like when they come back, they kick us in the teeth, and we need it, right? Yeah. It's almost so obvious. How do we miss it, right? Yeah. But it's good. What else, man? What else comes to mind as far as? I mean, you are Jacob Miller, so probably not a lot of.
Oh my gosh! Come on.
What's another one that comes to mind, man, that you would be willing to share?
Yeah, for me, like not being prepared all the time. Like that was for the longest time. I would I kind of mentioned before. I'd kind of off the cuff do things because I don't know. I feel like I'm really good at like kind of reacting and solving problems. Like I'll do this, I'll do that. Like with writing, I mean, I wrote an ebook in like 3 months. It was like 90 pages. I ended up giving it. I had it on like. Apple Books or whatever and Amazon for a while, but now it's just free on my site. It's from 2014. Yeah, it's a while ago. Wow. But like, it was just one of those things where, like, like you can't just kind of wing it all the time. And I definitely had situations where like equipment had gotten stolen that wasn't like my job's equipment had gotten stolen out of my own car. I'm like, man, I should have just like put it in my house. I was locked in my car, but someone broke into my car. I'm like, actually, if I would have just unloaded my car, locked it in my house instead of just my car, I would have thought about that. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So like stupid stuff like that, and then like even just like showing up to some kind of event thinking I have everything. Oh shoot, I should have like had a checklist before I left my house and like all that kind of stuff. And obviously there's days where you're just like so busy, like you just kind of go. But like that's the one thing I've learned is like being more prepared and having a checklist or having like some kind of physical reminder to be like, oh, I need to do all this stuff. And I'm getting better at it. But it's like that's been like my hugest thing like over the last decade is like just not being prepared, like mentally or physically with things with me, like bringing things with. And it's like, ah, shoot, I left that thing, or and everybody does that. But like for me, it's been like being prepared, like for the worst, I guess. Like, not that we should always be like have an underground thing for when have all the dry food down there and all that kind of stuff.
Not
like,
that you shouldn't.
Yeah. Not what's that TV show where people have like the underground set up for when like basically the end of the world happens? Was it like bunkers or whatever?
Preppers or extreme preppers?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But basically, you don't have to be that crazy.
Not that I watched it.
Yeah. But like, I think for me, it's like learning. I'm definitely still learning and getting and trying to get better at is like just being more prepared and like having like
sure.
Yeah. So
that's part of taking ownership, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say that, like in the negative, if you're telling someone, if you're saying like in your life, hey man, I've been like really unprepared.
Yeah.
What would you say? Don't do what? Don't do this. Don't.
Yeah.
How would you phrase it?
Don't assume that you have everything.
Yeah, and that's simple, right?
But yeah, or know everything. Don't assume you have or know everything. I think going into like whether you're going to an event and you're supposed to bring all this stuff, or going into a meeting, like don't assume that you know what they're going to say. Don't assume that you have all the answers. And that comes down to like slowing down and making time to be prepared.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of because I'm so rushed all the time. Like I feel like I'm more of a last minute guy.
Yeah. So it's don't assume you have everything. Know that you have everything.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Assume that you know you have everything. Have a checklist and have it all crossed off. Like so, it's like you're constantly kind of. Well, actually, like I think James Clear talks about in his book Atomic Habits, actually calling it out, right? Where you leave the house, let's check. Okay, I got my phone, got my wallet, and you're actually saying it out loud.
Keys, wallet, phone. Doesn't Adam Sandler have a thing?
I don't know.
It's like a song, yeah. I think it's Adam Sandler. Yeah, you should Google it. Keys, wallet, phone by Adam Sandler. I don't know. It's pretty funny.
Adam Sandler. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good, man.
One more.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, man, what do you got?
I feel like I want to be super wise and have some cool thing. But I think I'll go back to the finances thing. I think that just being willing to sit down and go through your finances and whether it's with your business or with yourself, I think that's super valuable because it can remove so much stress and anxiety from your life. Because it's totally changed mine in the last 3 years. It's crazy, how different I feel about what I can do now with my life because I know I can afford to do things. It's crazy. So I think for me, it's nothing wrong with you don't feel guilty about being in debt, but be wise enough to take ownership of it and and tackle it. So I think for me I think about that a lot. I don't necessarily regret it because it taught me a ton. Because super heavy things like that stick with you. You were saying, when people kind of abandon things, oh, I'll never do that again. I'm gonna always push through now. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I can think of.
How would you say, like, don't ignore the money?
Wait, what?
Don't ignore the money?
Yeah.
Is that how you'd phrase it, or how would you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I guess, like, understanding that, like, I guess removing the stigma of finances, like, from your life. Like, oh, don't be afraid to, like, know, like, where you're going and what you can do. And I think, too, I'm, like, already, like, thinking about, like, all the ways that I can, like, reinvest it, like, as I get to a point, so I can actually do more with my life, or, like, do more with my family, or do more, like, for other people in my life, and how I can maybe, like, I could potentially provide jobs for people. Like, that's crazy to think about. Like, as a side job, like, I could actually provide, like, jobs as a side gig while I'm still doing my main thing. Like, that's crazy to think about, but and everyone wins in that situation.
Yeah, so that's cool.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you're saying don't be afraid of money, because if you're afraid of money, well, money will be afraid of you, right? If you're afraid of money, money's gonna be afraid of you. If you I guess when you think about if you're afraid of something, you turn away from it, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happens if you're afraid of money? What are you doing? You're turning away from it, right? And if you're turning away from money, then where's your money going?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know. You're not watching it, right? So that's kind of what you're saying. That these things are really important in life. It's practical, and just be humble wherever you are.
Yeah.
Like, wherever you might be at in understanding your finances, or understanding finances at all. It doesn't matter. Just be humble.
Yeah.
If you need the help, get the help. You can Google everything these days, right?
Yeah.
Or reach out to somebody that you know that's got it on lock.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I don't know. I feel like those are the three.
Only three failures, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, no, not only three. I just like off the top of my head, I'm teasing. What the heck?
You met the quota. I only have 3 spots. So.
Okay, good.
Well, man, you gave us some awesome stuff on what you did right. You gave us all 3 things that you did wrong, and but if you could do it over again, I'm curious, man.
Yeah.
If you could do it over again, what would you do differently? Or another way to think about this question is like, let's say a guy came up to you and just say, hey, man, I know you don't know me, but I've been following your work, and I really love what you're doing. I could really see myself doing what you do someday. How do I get started down that path, right? Can I buy you a cup of coffee, and can I pick your brain? And he'd say, yeah, let's go. And so he's going to have some questions for you and want to know, and assuming you don't want him to suffer, needlessly, you're probably going to share not only what you did right, but also some things that you did wrong, so you just can avoid those mistakes. What would those, thanks, Sammy. How would you counsel him in that regards, or what would you do differently if you could do it over again?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if I was like talking to myself, a young version of myself, basically?
Yeah, could be that for sure.
Yeah. I'm like trying to think of like, oh, it's so contextual. How do I answer that? I think like it's one of those things where it's just like, it's funny, like now thinking about the wrong number 3 is spending, I think the one thing that actually impacts all of my mistakes is like spending too much time with the wrong people. So I think like the people that you surround yourself with are like a huge impact on like your own success, who you become, how, like the speed at which you become that person that you're aiming for. Like it's all like you become your environment basically. You become the people you surround yourself with, kind of thing. So I think one is like finding, they always say, I can't remember who says it, but it's like find the 5 people you want to surround yourself with outside your family. And I know there's some people that don't have like a supportive family, and that's really hard. And that's when like the friend circle or the mentorship circle is super important, because
not even that you want to just surround yourself with, but that you want to be like. Right?
You want to be like,
Because I think what your point was is we're going to become like those that we spend time with.
Yeah.
And so if when you say the wrong people, well, who are the wrong people? People that don't want to be like, people that might just be wasting their lives. And instead of helping each other to go further, faster, they're actually keeping me from really unleashing my potential and capacity in life, and they kind of just bring me down. So I need to find people that we can be of mutual encouragement and benefit, and that's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Find those people, and those are the people that you should want to spend time with. Yeah, that's good. That can be hard to recognize.
It's so hard. And that's where it's like one of those things where it's, you kind of have to like, once you do find the people that you can rely on and like that you like want to be like, and it's like always asking them like, hey, I don't know how to even bring that conversation up, but like I haven't asked them like, hey, what do you think about this person? Do you think like they're a good person for me in my life? And like those are really hard conversations, because they could be friends that you've had for like a decade or whatever, or your whole life, or you grew up with them, and it's like it's nothing like, it's not that you don't care about those people. It's that you need to like learn that like, I know that if I spend time with this person, I'm doing this more. I'm doing things that I don't like, or I don't like that I do that anymore. I used to be like that, but I don't want to be like that anymore. Like it's hard. Like that's like the weird human stuff that's like super hard. It's like it's heart stuff. It's not head stuff. It's like so hard. And I can't remember the beginning of the conversation there, but
what would you do differently? So I mean, you said one of the things you would advise your younger self to is, hey, make sure you're spending time with people that you want to be like, that are actually going to be encouraging to you, and not people that are just going to be kind of spinning in circles, chasing tails, that type of stuff.
And what's cool about that is like when you start to become that better person because you're surrounding yourself with those people, other people that are similar to that will start to attract to you because they want to surround themselves with you. Yeah. It's like it's like this crazy multiplier. Like it's really awesome. So yeah.
So I'm going to take a wild guess and say you probably experienced that dynamic in a startup community.
Yep.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
People that are big thinkers, problem solvers.
Yep.
They're wanting to do fun things. They're creative. They're not thinking outside the box. They're thinking, what box in the sense. And we're part of teams. They want to collaborate. They're wanting to build each other. They get that, hey, we're just people, right? It's not the suits and ties type of thing, right? It's a pretty cool environment if someone hasn't been a part of that kind of community. Would you affirm those things, or would you say, like, in your experience, like for you, like, you found a really good fit in the kind of tech and startup community as far as people that are like-minded, that are pushing you to become a better, version of Jacob Miller?
Yeah. I mean, so the digital fertilizer community, we had an anniversary event like 2 years ago, and we just had everybody share. Like, we kind of talked about the history of DF, and we celebrated some wins and stuff. But then we wanted everyone around the room like said why they like coming. Like, hey, why do you come to DF? And like the one thing that was said over and over and over in different ways is that people love to come and be surrounded by like-minded people that are like not like them, but like think, they think more forward. They're forward-thinking. They think differently. They want to pursue ideas. They're excited about things. They have like a positive mindset. Like there's more available. Like I can't think of the term when. I'm drawing a blank, but anyway, people love coming there because they like to be surrounded by people that like appreciate and want to support what they're doing and get like amped up and inspired by each other. So, absolutely. So
that's awesome. Very, very cool.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important, that kind of community. And we were just talking off air, but you mentioned abundance mindset versus scarcity. Can you just unpack that a little bit? Maybe people aren't familiar with that idea.
Yeah, because I think, so like a scarcity mindset is like a lot of people think like, oh, well, you can't do that because blah, blah, blah. Or like, oh, I could never do that because there's not enough of this.
You'll never make money doing this.
Yeah, you'll never there's no, like, how do you know that it's never been done before, that kind of stuff. So where like the abundance mindset is like, oh, there are enough people, there are enough customers, there are enough clients out there. Or like, for example, a lot of companies like that live in a certain city, they only go for clients or customers in their city. But like, what if you could expand outside of that? Like with the internet, you can, and obviously with like the software in the startup world, like that is a thing. Like just through the internet, you get customers. But I think more so with brick and mortar, like an agency or something, the idea of like, hey, you can get customers like in other cities, you can get customers in different countries if you want. Like it's totally possible. Yeah. So that's the difference between abundance and scarcity. So
yeah, very, very cool. Yeah. So speaking about being in a community of people, you mentioned how it's how it really affects how we turn out all of life, and I've kind of thought about it in the past like a garden. We have the if you think about like a rose, well, the potential and the capacity for that rose was wrapped up in the seed. It was meant to become a rose the whole time. Right. And but what determines whether or not that rose comes to full blossom and bloom in all of its glory is its environment.
Yeah.
What happens if it falls on blacktop? It's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
What happens if it never gets sun and rain?
Yeah.
What if it happens to get too much sun and not enough rain, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So environment, at some point, it shapes us, and it can really affect how we achieve our capacity. So it kind of goes back to highlight against, make sure whoever you're hanging out with, whoever you're spending time with, you need to make sure that you're on the same page and that they're actually helping you in this direction, not hurting you here.
Yeah.
And those can be really uncomfortable, hard questions to ask, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you, man, in your life as you're looking back to date, who has been one of the most, and probably several, but who kind of comes to mind when you think of like your success, your formation? Who has been someone that's been really, in a sense, irreplaceable in helping you to become the man that you are today?
I mean, if I think about like my entire life, like probably like my dad. I mean, just because he was the kind of guy that like he worked a full-time job, and then he became like, so I went to a Catholic school, a small private school, but he became the president of the board, like kind of he didn't really choose that. I remember him talking about like he showed up to the meeting and basically they're like, hey, we voted you to be president, and he's like, okay, and that was kind of how it happened. But he was already on the board, but he was the kind of guy where like he was there like mopping the floors and like sweeping things and like taking down chairs and tables for events, and like he was there all the time, like because he cared about us and like he knew it was important, and like I always saw that. And then we, of course, as kids, were always there helping out too. And no, my dad wasn't getting paid, like it wasn't like, so like I that always stuck with me. And like for example, like all these community events we do, like if it's not associated with Headway, like if it's for like startup week stuff or like digital fertilizer, like I'm not getting paid to do that stuff. I've hosted like my own creative events, like photo shoots and stuff, and like little mini workshops for free, because I'm like, I just want to like try this thing and see if I'd be good at it, or like who can benefit from it, and just like you just kind of do it. It's not like you don't think about like the returns of it. You're like, oh, because this is the right thing to do, and I think that the community needs this. And when you're helpful like that, like I've even done like video projects for like fundraising events and stuff, and when you think about that, like less about like what am I getting out of this, it's more like, oh, how can I help with the skills and the time that I have right now. Like it kind of like you're sowing. It's funny, you talked about garden before. I was like, oh, you're sowing these seeds, and that you don't harvest them today. You harvest them. Sometimes you get random seeds, you don't know what's going to grow, but you plant them and you take care of them and you tend to them. And if you keep doing those things and you're consistent and you're taking action and people recognize those actions, all of a sudden over time you can harvest like that. And it's like it's super unreal, because like I think about like where I work now at Headway, and it's like 5 years ago I never thought I'd be there. I mean, I was like, doing that, working in this industry, working with the people I get to work with, getting to travel and do things I didn't get to do through my job. It's like, holy crap! Like I never in my I thought about like, oh, it could be a possibility, but like the fact that like it all kind of lined up and it worked out, like it's crazy. Like it's just like but it like totally affirms everything I've been doing. Like, okay, this is good. Like I need to keep doing that stuff. Like that's why I did it. Like not that like the results were why, but it's just like this weird like reap what you sow kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. There's a great book called The Go-Giver. Have you ever heard it?
Mm-mm.
Bob Berg. It's kind of a parable about like extraordinary business of kind of giving yourself versus like taking.
Yeah.
He mentions in there in the story format the idea of you want to give more in use value than you take in cash value.
Yeah.
Right? So think about maybe like the idea of a book. It might cost you $10 for the book, but maybe there's $1,000 idea in that book.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
There's $1 million idea in that book.
Yeah.
So what you were given in use value was a lot more than you took, or than they took from you in cash value.
Yeah.
I think all of life needs to be that way. Like if we lead with money first and people second, it's a recipe for disaster. It's really a short-term strategy.
Yeah.
Justin and I were talking about that in our conversation together. Thinking, the next, I've got this great idea, it's going to make tons of money.
Yeah.
Well, you probably already know that they're leading with money first and people second. It's not going to go so well.
Yeah.
You lead with people first. How can I serve? How can I give extraordinary value? The money's going to come. The wealth is going to come. That's great, right? But it's going to come in its right place, right?
Yep.
Not first, not at the expense of others,
yep,
but because of others, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool. So. That's awesome, man. It's neat to see. In our day and age, it's good to have good dads.
It's
always needed
for
in every
sure.
day and age.
Yeah.
All right, man. So not the best advice, but I'm curious. I'm curious what the worst advice you ever heard is. So, imagine we're sitting here at the bar and the guy next to you is like, "Hey, buddy, you should do this," and you're like, "This is just terrible advice."
Yeah.
What do you think, man? Or that you've been given it sometime along the way.
It's funny because I don't. I've always thought I wanted to own a house.
Yeah.
And I think like people buying houses really young without like having a good, like I feel like people buying houses, they don't understand why they're actually buying a house. It's like a social expectation.
What you should do.
Yeah, what you should do. And it's not saying like just the house thing, but I think there's a lot of times where like social norms, like, well, everyone else has this, so I should probably do it. Like I need to have a nicer car. I need to have a nice house. I need to have like, there's a lot of things where like, especially, I'm 31, but like the last 10 years have been like, I slightly sometimes feel like I'm still failing because I'm not doing what everyone else is doing. Like I'm not married yet. I don't have any kids. I don't have a house. I do have a nice car though, but like I don't have a house. But then it's funny because now that I went through that book, I'll Teach You to Be Rich. Like as a single person to own a house, it actually doesn't really make sense. Like financially, like your time, like all that stuff. Because as a homeowner, it's no longer divided if you don't have a spouse. So you got to cut the grass. You have to do all these things. That there's repairs you have to take off work. All these different things that add up, like that actually like your time is money kind of thing almost. Just like all these things, and like so I think a lot of it is like just like don't like I think a lot of times like, oh, you need to do this. Like people always, because it's like when people recommend a social norm to you, I don't think it's I don't think it's just the house thing. I think it's like, oh, you should totally get this. Like, and it's like just based on like what the social norms are. Otherwise, I think too, like it's not necessarily a true statement, but I think when people will say, oh, you got to go to school for that, I don't think that's always true. Obviously, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor, yes, go to school, please, because you have to. Like, if you're going to save my life, please go to school. But as far as like marketing or like any a lot more creative paths, like you don't need to go to like a fancy art school. There's definitely benefits though to going to those institutions, especially if you have a scholarship. Go, like that's an awesome experience. If you have a scholarship to like go to like a really great establishment, to meet and network with really great people, and to like have that time to invest into your art and like into your creativity and your skills, like do it. Yeah. But like if you like do sit down and say, wow, if I go through this program, I'm going to be $60,000, $100,000 in debt, and like the average income of that type of role afterwards is like not that much, you should reconsider and think about like, hey, just like work a normal job or like do some online stuff or find like courses like in your community that you can take that are more easily done, and like invest in your free time. And because I think a lot of those skills are like you can do it by yourself and just like invest your time in your evenings to do it, but then try to find a mentor, like find someone in your area that's like really good at that one thing, and like have them like, hey, what would it take? I noticed you don't like offer lessons, but like, what can I pay you? Can I pay you $20 a week to give you for 30 minutes? Like,
can I pay you?
Yeah, can I pay you like whatever per month to just like meet with you once a month? Like, because I think that's like way more valuable to have like a mentor than to like go to this huge establishment, spend all this money, and maybe not get like what you thought out of it. So
yeah, because the learner can be much more integrated.
Yep.
Like I think you mentioned earlier about you were really learning on the job. Mm-hmm. And but it kind of actually harkens back to that more of like that apprenticeship model, right?
Yeah.
That we've kind of seen gone away like from centuries past, but you find someone who's a master in their craft.
Yeah.
And you come under their wing and you start from scratch, but you're learning, you're being molded, you're being shaped.
Yep.
And eventually you're going to spin out and do your own thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'd repeat that process to continue to reproduce masters, in the craft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Have you ever heard of it?
I'm actually familiar with the book, but I've never read it. Yeah.
Talks about. I guess he gives one of the most simple definitions of liabilities and assets. An asset puts money into your pocket.
Yeah.
A liability takes it out.
Yeah.
By that definition, a house is a liability.
Yeah.
Now people are gonna like uproar and unsubscribe from the podcast and all that stuff. But if you think about it, a house isn't liquid. You have to sell the house to get the equity, and that's when people think of a house as an investment. That's what they think of, right? They think of like all that I have in a house. But in the meantime, how much are you paying the house? just to take care of it. It's taking money out of your pocket just to keep it. So there's folks out there like I'm a fan of Grant Cardone. He
I'm familiar with him too. Actually,
he manages a $1.2 billion real estate portfolio. So he's made his money, right? And he doesn't own. He's very much against owning a home because of that principle. My wife and I personally would love to be able to maybe have a handful of acres in the country someday, that type of stuff. So I think there's value from our perspective, perceived value as far as wanting to own the land and pass it down through the family. All that to say, I'm right on board with saying like you need to. Don't just follow the conventional wisdom, like buying a house or whatever it might be, fill in the blank. Understand in this position in life, is this advantageous for you? Is it going to, for instance, in a house, is it paying you or are you paying it? And I think of we're renting right now and it's great. We've got a great setup, great living situation. I don't do anything. We got dumped in the past week 16 inches
don't
of
have
snow.
to move snow, don't have to cut
touch
grass.
A shovel once, right? You know what I'm saying? It's, and that's huge.
That's time with your kids and your wife.
Frees me up to do other things, especially in this stage of life when I'm giving myself to other endeavors that I can invest in. That time is super valuable.
Totally. And
people. So anyway, I think that's a really, really good thing. We're pressured just to do the social norms because that's what everyone else did. And the people that are giving that advice probably felt the pressure themselves. And now they're saying maybe subconsciously or something, they're kind of justifying why they did what they did, and hopefully we'll just go along with what they're saying. Maybe they're well intentioned and all that kind of stuff, and it's
for sure.
We want to be thinkers for ourselves. It's basically what you're saying. Think through it. It doesn't mean just because it's social norm doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad for you in this season of life. But you need to actually think about it, not just walk into it. Because.
It always surprises me, like, oh, well, why did you do that? Well, because I wanted to. And it's like, well, really? I don't know.
Why did you want to, right?
Like, they don't ever think about, like, the deeper behind why, for me, like, I would love to have a home because I would love to have a backyard. I would love to, like, build things in my garage.
Run around, right?
Yeah, like, those are things, and those are all things I would value, but, like, right now I don't need those things, and I can't afford to do that. So, like, okay, now I'm good. I'm happy where I'm at. It's like knowing what your needs are at, right? What's important right now, but then forward thinking, like, oh, I know in 10 years I want that. How do I get there? So,
Yeah, another one, probably controversial, but do you buy or lease a car?
Yeah, that too,
right? So it's like, it's well documented that the car is a depreciating asset. So you're paying the car is not paying you. So a lot of times people think, well, with like leasing, same thing with like an apartment, you're just throwing away your money. You could, or leasing could actually be the most advantageous thing you could be because of all the time that you're saving. If you look at the total cost of ownership, if you do the math over 10, 20, 30 years, however long you're going to keep the car, leasing's actually
tires and everything, and brakes, engine repair, all that kind of stuff. And time to bring it to the shop. You don't have a car for a day and a half or whatever. All those things.
Now some people will be like, "Well, I pay for the car in cash," and that's fine. If you've got the money just to throw cash at a car. But even then, it's still a depreciating asset. Why would you invest in a depreciating asset if it was stocks and someone's saying like, "Hey, this stock is going to lose X amount, 10%, every year for the next 20 years, and it's going to lose 20% over the next, or 50% over next, or it's going to lose 20% the minute after you buy it."
That's crazy.
And it's going to keep on going down, 10% every year for the next, 10 years.
Totally.
Where do you want to sign? You're like, I'm out. Well, when it comes to a car, we're like, I'm in. Where do I sign? It's kind of interesting. And James Clear talks about this, how our desire drives our behavior. And so then the question is tracing back, like, why do we want these things? Like, what's the main purpose behind this? It doesn't mean that owning a car is wrong or bad, right? But it's good to be eyes wide open, fully aware of what you're getting into and why, right?
Like having a nice, like, for example, if you own a family, having a nice SUV or a van, like, allows you to go on road trips with your family, have a reliable vehicle. It's totally all that kind of stuff. Car, if you get in a car accident, are my kids going to be safe? Like,
logistically, you can't just Uber around a family of 5 or 6. Whatever it is.
Totally.
That's awesome, man. Well, okay, but last but not least here, it's rush hour. Every major city on the face of the earth, billions of people. They're tuning into what not to do, and it just happens to be your episode. And once you know it, they look out their window and they see a billboard, and it's your billboard. What message do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
Yikes. that's it. No, I'm just kidding. Man, this is tough. Actually, there's this one. It's funny, for the longest time on my Instagram, I used to like always end, because my Instagram's like weird photo essays. Like I just tend to like write really deep stuff on my Instagram posts, and I always used to like just say at the bottom, "Be brave, friends." So like I think a lot of it comes down to being like, just being willing to like kind of take a chance on something, or to like not give up, or like just, I don't know. I think that's it. I think it's that simple sometimes. Like, hey, just be willing to go the extra mile, or to show up, or like show up even if you don't feel like you're ready. A lot of those things. So I think be brave, friends. And I think too, like, having that mindset that everyone is like, can be a friend, in a weird way. We shouldn't like think about the past of someone, because like if we haven't seen someone in 10 years, they're probably not the same person, like that too. And it's like you want to wish them well, like no matter what, like whoever encounters your life, you wish good things for them, and like you want them to change, because there's things in your life that you've done really poorly too, and you've changed and hopefully gotten better. So to just think that no one else can change is kind of naive. So so I think be brave, friends. I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, man. All right, let's do this. Bonus question. You already mentioned one.
Okay.
What are your, and they could be your top 3 books, or just books that have been impactful for you, and say like, man, like whoever's listening to this, you guys need to go get these 3 books. Put them on your reading list.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier, so Herding Tigers by Todd Henry. It's like a really great book for anyone looking into becoming like a director or manager in a creative environment, or like in an agency, or I guess in general too, like if you're dealing with anyone. But he just talks a lot about like how to be a better leader, and like how to take more responsibility and do less micromanagement. How do you gain trust with your team? It's a really great book.
Cool.
The second one is called The Road Less Traveled. And I can't remember the author. I got it for Christmas like 4 years ago from my sister. She read it in high school, but it's actually about like human psychology and faith and love. So like it actually is a lot about relationships, and how love is kind of like one of the most important like parts in life, no matter like if it's in your family, in your friends, or like in your work environment. Like having compassion is like super important, and letting people know that you care about them is so important. It's a really great book. He talks a lot about it, and how like the idea of love and being compassionate is all about like making time for it. It has like the one story he talks about in there is like, my neighbor was fixing his lawnmower, and he's like, I approached him and said, I wish I knew how to fix my own lawnmower. He's like, well, yeah, you could learn how to do it if you took the time to learn. And it's the same thing with the relationships. If you took the time to learn how to be better at relationships, you will get better at relationships. And love is always at the core of that. So it was really cool book. Recommend it. And the last one is What to Do When It's Your Turn by Seth Godin. That's a really great book. He dives into just like, a lot of it is like being brave to take that first step, and then be consistent. Like just always show up every day and do that one thing you're passionate about, like without expectation. Like don't just like, like you said, don't focus on the money. I mean, if it's a business, you kind of need to focus on that. But if you're doing this kind of thing that you're passionate about, that's more focused on community, or it's like a hobby, just go and do it, and show up every day, and like constantly like try to make things better. So he has a really great stories throughout people in history that actually their actions like had such a huge impact to way down the road and all that kind of stuff. So really, really great book. So
that's awesome. Well, we will have those in the show notes, along with your contact info, and where people can get a hold of you. Where can they do that? Oh, yeah. So I'm pretty active on Twitter, and kind of
Instagram.
On Instagram. More of my stories than I'm on my actual posting. I'll show footage of my dog and stuff, and like things, places I go hiking and all that. And then I'm not on Facebook, actually. I've been off of Facebook since 2013. Congratulations. Fact. Yeah, it's awesome, actually. I'm on it only. I have an account just for managing like marketing stuff, for like events and everything. And then obviously I'm on LinkedIn too. So Jacob Miller, and I work at Headway. If you're kind of searching in there, there's a lot of Jacob Millers probably on the LinkedIn. So, but yeah, and then I have a website, kineticbear.com, where I have a blog. And this year, actually, Andrew Verbincourt and I have a bet with each other to do one blog post each month. And if we don't do it, we have to pay the other person $100. So each month? No, not $100 a month. Holy cow, no way. Just for the year. So, but yeah, wages would be high. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. Well, man, Jacob, this has been so awesome. I think our listeners will be equally impacted by this as I am. It's been a blast. I hope you guys have felt like you've been here having a macchiato or a brew with us. And if you're interested in hearing more about Jacob, learning about him, connecting with him, wanting to do business with him, find his stuff in the show notes and reach out to him. So,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Yeah, such a great conversation with Jacob Miller. Just packed too, and love. It's just amazing. Depending on who you sit down with, you get different things, and sometimes you get similar principles, but from different vantage points. And it's amazing. It's like a prism. You just turn it one way, you see, what you see, and then you turn it another way, and you see something from a little bit different angle, and it's just amazing. It's the human spectrum is just fantastic. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent here, but let's recap. First, Jacob said, don't forget people. Don't forget people. There's a way in which we can go about doing what we do that we forget that we're doing it for people. we go about doing what we do and we forget who we're doing it for. So don't forget people. You want people in your corner. It's good. Don't forget about them. Treat them with kindness, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's almost basic. It's cliche, and yet I think maybe we all are guilty of it to some capacity. Next, don't assume you have or know everything. Don't assume you have it all together, and don't assume you know it all. So you're leaving the house, right? Don't assume you have everything. Call it out, right? Keys, wallet, etc. Don't assume you know everything going into a situation, right? Know that you know. Get others to help. Don't assume that you have everything. Don't assume that you know everything. Next, don't be afraid of money. Don't be afraid of money. It's when things aren't going well financially, it's easier to turn away and just, not face the reality because you're afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. Face the reality. Look at it as ugly as it might be or as great as it might be, and mind the money. And a bonus one, don't spend time with the wrong people. Don't spend time with the wrong people. You are already following that advice. You're already not making that failure by being here. And so I want to remind you, first of all, thank you so much for listening. Next, this podcast is about you. It's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. Being here, learning from folks that have had successes and willing to pass on failure to you is already making that conscious choice, that step in the right direction of really being picky on who you spend time with and who you listen to. And that's huge. And I have the sheer joy of learning with you and brokering those conversations, which is so exciting. So if this podcast has been helpful for you, maybe even this specific episode with Jacob Miller, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who would also be really helped by it. One great way you can do that is to go over to Apple Podcasts, and only if you think the show deserves it, give us an honest 5-star review. It can really help us to get stories like Jacob's out to the world, and it could help equip the world for success, which is awesome. Connect with us on social media. Let's keep the conversation going there. Shoot me a note on who you want to hear on what not to do, and maybe it's you. So make yourself known. Let me know. If you'd like to give, you can do that at patreon.com. And if you're a company that has a relevant message to what we're doing here, reach out to me and let's connect and consider what would look like to partner together. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go, be great, and we'll see you next time.